welcome Melinda Lopez and David Dower, the
Thank you.
Mala team.
Part of it.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
It's so good to talk with both of you. So we are gathering because Mala is being aired on GBH, which is very exciting. And we're also concurrently doing a series at ArtsEmerson called the Together Apart series, where we're kind of revisiting some of our favorite shows from over the years and taking the opportunity to catch up with the artists. And so what a beautiful way to kind of kick everything off. And we're happy to have Mala be included in the series.
Yeah.
So I want to start with where we began. So years ago, 2016, 15, you were a part of the National Playwright Residency Program, Melinda, at the Huntington, and you came to Emerson and you read a very early draft of Mala. And then we ran the show in the Black Box Theater, and then it's had quite a life since then. So where have you all been?
Well, thank you so much. This is, I love reminiscing. Yes, I read the very first draft of Mala in a room with a handful of people. I hand-selected to hear this very raw and new work that I wasn't sure what it was. I wasn't sure if it was a play. ArtsEmerson opened their theater to me, and we gathered around a table, and following that, conversation began about bringing in David Dower to hear the play read again. And David jumped on and said, yes, this is a play, and ArtsEmerson wants to produce it. I think what you said, David, at the time was, we put the world on stage, and that means Boston too. Yeah. And so we had a sold out run at ArtsEmerson in the fall of 2016. We had to extend, we had to add shows. Following that run, the play went to Minneapolis at the Guthrie Theater, where I ran for 3 weeks, up in the Midwest, where they really understand snow and cold as well. And then we brought Mala back for a limited run at the Huntington Theater, just down the street from ArtsEmerson. So we had a second run in Boston. That was another 4 weeks. And over that time, the play, the text didn't change very much. The text changed slightly, but it felt like the performance grew richer and deeper. And we were also so lucky that WGBH came and recorded one of the performances. So they got to capture a real audience. They had several cameras set up. And that's what we're going to be seeing on the thing that they're showing.
On TV. Yeah, but on TV, yeah. Melinda, you've also, since you've created the Audible version of it, which sold well, and then has the Spanish translation been released on Audible yet?
So I know the Spanish translation was recorded, and they have it in the can. I think it's available for downloading, but I'm not 100% sure. But yes, so that also either is available or will be available very soon. That's right. So I went into the studio in Newark at the Audible Studios to record that. That's me on the recording. You can also download that. And so that was very interesting. It was my first experience taking the show from a theater with a live audience into a much smaller venue where I'm, talking to a microphone. And then this is also another step where we'll be able to experience the play in our homes instead of in the theater.
And it's also published through DPS, I believe.
It's published through Dramatist Play Service, and I've also done I've had a number of speaking engagements. I've spoken with National Society of Social Workers, hospice workers. I've had a lot of more social engagement with groups that are interested in me coming to both talk about my personal experience and also share selections from the show. So I tend to include pieces of it when I do any kind of public engagement, any kind of readings or lectures. it's a piece that people are very, very moved by. They're very interested in talking about the issues that it brings up. And it brings me great pride that the play can serve in that way.
Can I ask you a question? The play, Mala, the character, which, you know, it's always such a slippery slope, Kevin. We could talk more about that. What is Melinda and what is Mala, and is there a difference, and what's true and what's fictionalized? But the character Mala, she's essentially not in control. She's not someone who's saying, here's everything I learned and I'm going to give it back to you. But now, with everything that you're doing, what you're just talking about, I would imagine that people are looking to you as a certain kind of expert. And do you, Melinda, feel a kind of expertise at this point? Or is it still more questions than learned things?
That's such a good question, David. You know, from having directed the play, that one of the things that was important to Melinda Lopez, the playwright, was that the play was set in a time of uncertainty, and that the play lacks the perspective of someone who has come through the experience. Yeah. So, because my sense of going through the experience is, you don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know how long it will last. You don't know how long you'll have your parent with you. You don't know what might happen tomorrow. So there's so much uncertainty. And it seemed to me that there was a lack of resources, both artistic and even books and learning that could honor that experience. Honor the experience of not being sure what's next. Mm-hmm. It was important to me to not have any kind of authoritative voice on how to deal with, you know, these kinds of questions and how to prepare. And so that's knit into the experience of the play. That said, I do think the play, over the course of the play, the character of Mala comes to understand that the most important thing she can do is actually sit in a chair and be in the room and bear witness. And, you know, whatever happens tomorrow doesn't matter. Ultimately, what matters is what's happening right now. And I guess that would be a perspective that I feel like I have grown into as an individual. And it's something that I feel is really important in, you know, my spiritual practice, is just to try to be present, because ultimately having control over things, there's a difference between being prepared and having control. I think having control is an illusion. Mm-hmm. Preparation is much more within our welkin. So I would say that's something, if Melinda had anything to offer, it would be that. Certainly I'm not a therapist. I'm not any person who works in hospice or has that kind of medical background. What I do have is lived experience about what it was like for one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's so much in that we get from that experience of the kind of messiness of it that allows audiences to really find themselves in it so quickly. It's not a polished or kind of saccharine experience. It's funny and it's awkward and it's frustrating and it's sad. And I think because of that, it really lends itself to be the perfect kind of tool. I know that I've quoted, like, I've sat on the phone and read like giant sections of it to people that are going through similar experiences, because I just find the space it gives people to be so helpful.
Yeah, that's so true. You talk about the messiness of it, the unstructuredness of it, the sudden surprises, the moments of real honesty, the moments of hilarious, like terrible coincidences, and the family dynamics, which are so fraught. I'm a firm believer that the funniest things are the true things. And one of the things that I enjoyed when I finally got to see the show was I thought it really held up. I thought it was very funny. I certainly learned that from audiences. They come wanting to laugh. Mostly they're laughing at Mala. They're laughing at her mistakes and her panic and her, you know, her totally inappropriate way of addressing issues in the family, her overreactions. You know, I think Mala is a proxy for us oftentimes at our least successful. I won't say bad, I'll say our least successful, right? And one of the things that I feel like this show can articulate is that there are times that we are called on to be everything to the people who love us the most. And we have had no training, and we have had, you know, very little in the way of preparation to do some of these things. And so we make poor choices, we do things wrong, we try so hard and often fail. And that felt really important to acknowledge. So many people have come to me after the show and said, I felt so seen. I felt like you understood my experience. You understood my guilt and my shame, and you made it okay. You made it okay that I wasn't perfect at that time, and that sometimes I got angry, or that I wasn't able to be successful all the time. It's so important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, you know, I think the viewers will, you know, go back through the experience of it, and you'll find that you started out laughing at Mala perhaps, but then the laughs became more knowing. They became like, oh, I recognize that in myself. Yeah. Oh, I recognize that moment from my experience. And the journey, I was always fascinated by that. The journey from, oh, there's someone telling me a story about their life, to, oh, this person is, you know, killing me softly with their song. Yeah. You know? And that the nature of being seen in this experience is not just that this person sees me, this person on stage, and this writer and this performer, but they also see the person I lost. Like, for people who have come through a circumstance, yeah, they watch it with that person, you know, always reporting that. And so it's, you know, go back through your own experience, and maybe that was yours, even through the television, but it was always one of the remarkable things for me about this piece.
Yeah, that is so true. That's so true to my experience of performing it. The other thing I'll add is the excitement that audiences have to find each other and talk about their experiences and share what they learned or didn't learn, or what they wish they knew. And, you know, certainly one of the things that I hoped that the play would do would be to open the door a crack for families to say, hey, this is a good time to talk about what I want. This is the good time to acknowledge or ask questions or tell each other what matters to you, and not leave all of those discussions to very, very late, because they're normal and healthy, and we age and we change, and we can't always predict where we'll be. And in our country, I think we're getting better at talking about end of life. I think we're getting better about it. In 2015, 2016, when I wrote it, we were less good. And I wished I had had an opportunity. I wish someone had opened the door for me. Yeah. And so I wanted to be able to try to do that for people, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. There's something so significant about where the play happens too, kind of almost in the moment before, you know, so that the fact that that Mala is still processing. I feel like there's been a lot of work that I've seen in the last year that's about sorting through the process of mourning.
Right.
But there is a kind of pre-mourning period when you're in that period of, you know, she doesn't live, and kind of wrestling with all the complicated emotions right. of that. You mentioned
we're in a period like that right now, which I find really fascinating. And when we just watched this the other day, and Melinda saw it for the first time with a group of us on a group text who had all been the creative team, but it's very similar in a certain way to where we are right now in the pandemic, that we were in the snowfall. That there was a period in that snowfall when Melinda was capturing all of this information and where the play is set, where we had no idea. How long is this going to go on? What will life be like after it ends? When you say preparation as opposed to control, I feel like that's everything right now. Like, we just can't control a thing right now. We can hopefully be prepared, and we are more and less prepared as a country, as a community, as an individual, but we can't control. And so that element of bringing this piece to life again in this manner right now is so on it that it's bringing this piece right now where we can no longer gather in public. We're going to gather online and see this experience that was meant to be a communal experience, that is a communal experience. And that speaks right to the moment of we don't know. We just have to sit in the chair. We've got to figure out how to sit in the chair and be present to what's happening. And when it does happen, when it's over, whatever the over is, then figure out what we learned.
Yeah, that's so true. And there's also something that I've been thinking a lot about, wanting to remember this experience specifically in its specificity, in its moment-to-moment confusion and panic, so that I can remember it accurately, so that in 10 years, when I'm telling someone about it, it won't become this haze of like nostalgia or sort of misinformation. It feels important to document it in a way, in the same way that I felt it was important to document the experience with my mom and my parents. So there is a weird parallel there. It's like being caught in a washing machine, right? And you just, you're built to forget.
Yep.
Right? We're built to forget. And it seems to matter more and more.
Especially, women who give birth. Like, you would never do that again if you remembered it in any detail, right? I mean, that's just like, whoa, good thing. Something.
That evolution, they worked that out.
You say that even in the play, and I've always loved that line. I'm going to mark this down, because if I mark it, and when I mark it down, that means that I don't want to forget it. And if I might forget it, if I have to remember it, it will mean that there was a moment when I'd forgotten, and that just the gift of forgetting it, but not wanting to lose it. Like that's, we're in that moment. I'm so glad you're capturing it now, because I know you have that gear in you of don't capture all the details. Don't make meaning of them until later, but capture them for now.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's another thing too, which is the opportunity to put an artistic form onto chaos, right? So in the experience of it, it feels like chaos. It feels like there's no beginning, no middle, no end. There's no way of understanding it. But when we begin to put our experience into a form, then we can make sense of it. We can look at it. We can say, oh, this is what happened. And I think you don't have to be an artist to do that. It's as simple as, writing a letter. And when you write a letter, you put an order to things and you make sense of them. So even if you're writing a letter, you're recording a memo for, your grandchildren who are not yet born, or you look at the way, you're going to choose to, choose specific fabric for the mask that you're making for your friend, and you're putting some sort of order and control on what you can. I feel like the opportunity to bring creative aspects into our lives now, if it's possible, because it's not possible for some of us. Some of us are really deep in the washing machine, and and God bless to those of you who are doing that. But for many of us who are sort of surviving and living through and getting up every day and saying, okay, how am I going to organize my day? To remember that we have an opportunity to create a narrative for ourselves about what we're living through, and later it may come to have meaning as artistry. It may be a record that's important. It may be something that you share with your family. or your friends, you know, or it may be something that reaches an audience of thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah, yeah. I have these little rituals. I don't know if you guys do, but talk about getting through the day. So every morning I get up, I get dressed for work, and I get dressed to work, and I leave the house, and I walk to the T, and I walk through the T station, and then I walk back to my house, and I go in the back door, and now I'm at work. And then after I'm done with my work day, I text my wife, say I'm on my way, and I walk out the back door, and I walk around the house, and I walk back into the house, and I change. And it's such a silly thing, except that I'm a theater person, so I believe in it. Like I'm making a narrative out of my day, because otherwise my day wouldn't end, right? I mean, I'm sure many people are struggling with that. Like when's it over if you're working from home? If there's no commute, when does it start? When does it end? And so I do that for myself every day.
That's great.
I'm going to make a play out of those movements.
You know, your neighbors are absolutely watching you, and they all have theories about what exactly is happening in that moment.
Not just my neighbors, the tea personnel, because it's the same people every morning. They're like, what are you doing? I walk right through the station on end to end and out the other end. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, thank you both so much for taking the time. I think there's a lot. I'm just so excited to have Mala back in the water, to have Mala be a thing that we can share, through the television, which is crazy, and on another level.
Kevin, before you hang up, the one thing that Kevin said earlier, I just thought it was so brilliant, that this moment of Mala coming back to us, it's like it's already written in the play, and it's the moment when Mala brings her mother back to the nursing station, and they say, Frances is here, Frances is there. We never get to see them again. Thank you for bringing her. So, to GBH, thank you very much for bringing Mala back. We'd never get to see them again.
Yeah, thank you, David, and thank you all the people who had such faith in the narrative, and made such a beautiful production. I've never seen the play, and I watched the rough cut, and I was really stunned by the physical beauty of the piece, and I feel very proud of it.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin.